The massive holographic chamber hummed with the ambient translation fields, casting a soft blue glow across the assembled alien delegates. Hundreds of species from across the known galaxy occupied their designated platforms, each representing millennia of technological advancement and cosmic heritage. And then there was humanity, seated in the farthest corner, almost an afterthought in the grand tapestry of interstellar politics. Jake Thompson adjusted his standard-issue diplomatic uniform, its simple gray fabric a stark contrast to the ornate, iridescent garments surrounding him. At 35, he was the youngest human ever appointed to the Galactic Confederation's diplomatic corps, a position that seemed more like a bureaucratic joke than a genuine opportunity. The other delegates rarely acknowledged the human delegation, their translators automatically reducing human speech to background noise. What they didn't realize was that Jake Thompson was anything but background noise. His eyes, a steel gray that seemed to absorb more information than they reflected, scanned the chamber with calculated precision. Each alien species represented here was a complex ecosystem of political intrigue, economic ambition, and territorial anxiety. The Zornak, with their crystalline exoskeletons, dominated the central platform, their multifaceted eyes constantly shifting in a display of perpetual surveillance. To their left, the gaseous beings of the Nebulon Collective merged and separated in intricate communication patterns that would look like random turbulence to an untrained eye. Humanity's platform was deliberately positioned at the chamber's periphery, and not so subtle message about their perceived importance. The holographic interface before Thompson flickered occasionally, a testament to the outdated technology allocated to Earth's representatives. Most human diplomats would have been demoralized, but Thompson saw opportunity where others saw limitation. A subtle communication device was embedded behind his right ear, a custom piece of technology developed by Dr. Emily Rodriguez. It wasn't just a communication tool. It was a near-sentient adaptive interface that could process and analyze multiple communication streams simultaneously. While the other delegates relied on standard translation matrices, Thompson's device was decrypting linguistic and cultural nuances in real time. The current session was discussing resource allocation in the outer spiral arm, a region rich with rare mineral deposits and strategic trade routes. Thompson knew the discussion was theater, a carefully choreographed performance where the most powerful species would divide resources among themselves while smaller civilizations watched helplessly. As the Zornik representative began his presentation, Thompson's ear device began parsing the complex linguistic structure. What sounded like a monotonous series of clicks and harmonic frequencies to others was, to him, a detailed map of political manipulation. He noticed subtle linguistic markers, slight hesitations, specific frequency modulations that revealed the true intent behind the seemingly neutral statements. The other human delegates shifted uncomfortably, sensing the familiar pattern of being systematically marginalized. But Thompson remained absolutely still, a predator observing its prey. His datapad, another Rodriguez special, was collecting and cross-referencing information at a rate that would overwhelm most computational systems. Economic projections, historical conflict databases, resource distribution algorithms, all were being analyzed in microseconds, creating a comprehensive picture that no single delegation could perceive. The Nebulon representative began their counterargument, their gaseous form creating intricate holographic representations of proposed resource distribution. To the casual observer, it was a complex display of technological sophistication. To Thompson, it was a poorly disguised attempt to monopolize strategic mineral rights under the guise of equitable distribution. A slight smile played at the corner of his mouth. The other delegates had no idea what was coming. Humanity might have been seated in the forgotten corner of this grand chamber, might have been considered a young, inexperienced species by the galactic standards. But Jake Thompson knew something they didn't, that being underestimated was the most powerful strategic advantage one could possess, and humanity was about to prove just how powerful that advantage could be. The holographic display continued its endless dance of lights and projections, completely unaware that the most significant transformation was about to begin. not with a roar, but with the calculated silence of a species ready to redefine the rules of engagement. The Resource Allocation Conference entered its third standard cycle, a marathon of diplomatic posturing that had lulled most delegations into a state of bureaucratic torpor. Jake Thompson remained hyper-alert, his adaptive communication device parsing every nuanced interaction with surgical precision. Chief Zornak diplomat Krelmak began presenting the final resource distribution proposal. His crystalline exoskeleton caught the chamber's holographic light, creating a mesmerizing display of refracted colors that was clearly designed to distract from the proposal's more insidious details. Thompson recognized the psychological manipulation technique immediately, a classic alien diplomatic strategy meant to overwhelm sensory perception while obscuring critical information. Dr. Maria Santos, the lead human economic analyst, leaned closer to Thompson. "Something's wrong with these allocation matrices," she whispered, her fingers dancing across a micro-projection only visible to her. "The mineral distribution percentages don't align with the geological survey data we received last quarter." Thompson's micro-earpiece buzzed almost imperceptibly. Dr. Emily Rodriguez was monitoring the conference remotely, her custom AI system cross-referencing every statement against hundreds of databases. "Jake," her voice came through so softly it seemed to materialize directly in his consciousness, "I'm detecting multiple layers of embedded misinformation in Krelmak's presentation." The chamber's ambient translation field hummed, converting the complex linguistic patterns of the alien delegates into comprehensible language. Most human diplomats would have been content to listen passively, but Thompson and his team were anything but passive. As Krelnak continued his presentation, Thompson's adaptive interface began reconstructing the underlying data patterns. What appeared to be a straightforward resource allocation proposal was actually an intricate mechanism of economic subjugation. The proposed distribution would effectively trap smaller civilizations in perpetual economic dependency, creating a sophisticated form of interstellar economic slavery. The other delegations sat in a collective trance, the psychological manipulation techniques working perfectly. Smaller species avoided eye contact, while more powerful civilizations subtly positioned themselves to maximize their potential gains. Humanity's platform remained the only one that showed no signs of the induced diplomatic stupor. Thompson stood. The sudden movement caused a ripple of confusion through the chamber. Alien delegates turned, their various sensory organs focusing on the human representative with a mixture of curiosity and mild irritation. "Point of clarification," Thompson said, his voice cutting through the translation field with unexpected clarity. Krelmak's crystalline form shifted, the equivalent of an alien raising an eyebrow. "The human delegation wishes to speak." The chamber fell silent. Humanity rarely interrupted these proceedings, typically content to observe and accept whatever allocations were decided. Thompson activated a holographic display that materialized complex economic models, geological survey data, and historical resource distribution patterns. Each projection was color-coded, interconnected, revealing a web of economic manipulation that stretched back nearly 3 galactic standard centuries. "Your proposed resource allocation," Thompson began, "is not merely unfair. It is a systematic mechanism of economic oppression that has prevented at least 17 developing civilizations from achieving technological and economic independence." The chamber temperature seemed to drop. Rodriguez's AI was simultaneously translating Thompson's statement, ensuring that every delegate, regardless of their linguistic or cognitive complexity, could understand the full implications. Krelnak's crystalline form began to vibrate, the alien equivalent of anger and surprise. "These are serious accusations, human representative. They are documented facts," Thompson responded, his voice calm and methodical. One by one, the holographic projections began revealing hidden economic connections. Mineral rights that appeared randomly distributed were actually carefully orchestrated to maintain a specific power structure. Trade agreements that seemed neutral were precision-engineered economic traps. The Nebulon representatives began to leak slightly, a sign of extreme diplomatic stress in their gaseous species. The Arcali delegation's communication tendrils began to curl inward, a defensive posture that suggested they recognized the emerging truth. Thompson wasn't just presenting an argument. He was systematically dismantling an entire system of interstellar economic manipulation, and humanity was just getting started. The diplomatic chamber, once a place of controlled narrative and subtle subjugation, had become a crucible of unexpected revelation. The universe was about to learn that humanity was nobody's footnote. The retaliatory strike came swiftly and without mercy. Within 48 hours of Jake Thompson's diplomatic revelation, the Galactic Confederation imposed comprehensive sanctions against Earth. Communication networks went dark. Economic channels froze. Trade routes that had taken decades to establish vanished overnight. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a facility that didn't officially exist, Dr. Emily Rodriguez watched the global communication blackout with a predatory smile. "They think isolation is a weapon," she muttered to her team of researchers. "But for humans, isolation is just another problem to solve." The facility was a marvel of human ingenuity, a research complex that defied every conventional understanding of scientific collaboration. Physicists worked alongside biochemists. Computer engineers collaborated with linguistic experts. Quantum mechanics specialists shared coffee with material scientists. This wasn't just a research center, it was a crucible of human potential. Dr. Marcus Williams, a quantum computing specialist with wild hair and eyes that burned with intellectual fire, was already reconfiguring their primary communication systems. The alien sanctions had cut off traditional interstellar communication networks, but humans viewed limitations as opportunities. "We're going to rebuild everything," Williams announced, his fingers flying across a holographic interface that seemed to change configuration with each touch. "Not just our communication systems, our entire approach to technological infrastructure." The team around him didn't see this as a setback. They saw a challenge. Within the first week of sanctions, traditional economic models would have collapsed. But humanity operated differently. Local communities began implementing blockchain-based economic systems that the alien confederation couldn't track or control. Small businesses transformed into networked cooperatives. University research centers became innovation hubs that shared resources in ways no centralized system could comprehend. Dr. Rodriguez's primary project was particularly fascinating. She was developing adaptive communication technologies that could bypass traditional electromagnetic spectrum limitations, where alien civilizations relied on established quantum communication protocols. Humans were creating entirely new communication paradigms. "Information doesn't just travel," she explained to a group of young researchers. "It evolves." Her prototype device looked deceptively simple, a small neural-linked transmitter that could adapt its communication frequency faster than any known tracking system. It didn't just send information, it learned from each transmission, creating increasingly complex communication patterns that made traditional interception techniques obsolete. In orbital research stations, human engineers were redesigning entire industrial processes, modular manufacturing systems that could be rapidly reconfigured, adaptive AI systems that could predict and counter economic disruption, bioengineering techniques that could transform resource limitations into opportunities. The alien confederation believed they were applying economic pressure. Instead, they were unleashing humanity's most dangerous trait, its ability to transform crisis into innovation. Jake Thompson, monitoring the global response from a secure communication hub, recognized the pattern immediately. Humans didn't fight systems, they reimagined them entirely. Military strategists from other civilizations would have seen this as a defensive posture. But this was something far more dangerous. This was a complete systemic reimagining of how a species could respond to external pressure. Universities became innovation centers. Small businesses transformed into networked problem-solving collectives. Every community became a potential research and development hub. The sanctions that were meant to isolate humanity had instead created the most distributed, adaptive innovation network in galactic history. Dr. Williams' communication prototype made its first successful transmission in the third week. It wasn't just a message, it was a statement. A quantum-encoded transmission that could not be tracked, intercepted, or understood by any existing alien communication technology. "We're not just surviving," Williams said, watching the transmission's complex data pattern. "We're evolving." The alien confederation had attempted to break humanity through isolation. Instead, they had created something far more dangerous. A species that saw limitations as the first step toward transformation. And they were just getting started. The Galactic Confederation's Psychological Warfare Division had perfected their techniques over 10,000 years. They had broken civilizations with surgical precision, dismantling entire species' will to resist through carefully calibrated mental manipulation techniques that had become an art form of cosmic proportions. Dr. Aria Chen sat in the Human Psychological Response Center, her fingers dancing across a holographic interface that pulsed with impossible complexity. Around her, a team of experts from disciplines that shouldn't logically work together. Neuroscientists beside cultural anthropologists, quantum psychologists next to game theory specialists, watched with predatory concentration. The alien confederation believed they understood humanity. They had extensive psychological profiles, compiled from decades of observation. Humanity was supposed to be emotional, reactive, prone to internal conflicts. The perfect target for systematic psychological breakdown. They were catastrophically wrong. The first wave of psychological attacks came through standard Confederation channels, targeted communication designed to create doubt, to sow internal discord, holographic messages that exploited known human psychological vulnerabilities. Carefully crafted narratives meant to trigger fear, uncertainty, and division. Most species would have fractured immediately. Humanity responded by turning the attack into a global problem-solving exercise. University research centers began analyzing the psychological warfare techniques in real time. Social media platforms transformed into distributed intelligence networks. Where other civilizations saw potential division, humans created unprecedented collaboration. "They're using a multilayered cognitive disruption protocol," Dr. Chen announced to her team. Her voice was calm, almost excited. "It's beautiful, actually, mathematically precise, and completely breakable." The Confederation's psychological warfare teams had developed techniques that had systematically dismantled hundreds of civilizations. They understood fear. They understood isolation. They understood how to create narrative structures that would collapse a species' internal cohesion. What they didn't understand was humanity's fundamental nature. Humans didn't just resist psychological warfare. They transformed it into an opportunity for collective growth. Social media platforms became real-time analysis centers. Artists created multimedia presentations that decoded the psychological manipulation techniques. Comedians developed satirical content that neutralized the emotional impact of the alien narratives. Musicians composed works that directly challenged the psychological attack vectors. Jake Thompson watched the global response from the Human Psychological Warfare Coordination Center. This wasn't defense. This was something far more dangerous. This was humans turning psychological warfare into a collaborative art form. The alien confederation had precise, mathematically designed psychological attack protocols. Humanity responded with something far more terrifying, adaptive, creative, unpredictable resistance that defied all standard computational models. Dr. Chen's team developed counter-narrative technologies that could be distributed faster than the original psychological attacks. Adaptive communication protocols that would transform the very nature of the psychological warfare landscape. "We're not blocking their attack," Dr. Chen explained to her team. "We're rewriting the entire language of psychological interaction." Quantum linguists developed communication frameworks that could neutralize psychological manipulation techniques in real time. Cultural anthropologists created narrative structures that transformed potential fear into collective motivation. Neuroscientists developed technologies that could help individuals recognize and neutralize psychological manipulation at a neurological level. The Alien Confederation had spent millennia perfecting psychological warfare. They had created precise, mathematically elegant systems of mental manipulation. Humanity treated it like an open-source problem to be solved collaboratively. Where other species would have broken, humans were becoming stronger. Where psychological attacks were meant to create fear, humans were creating unprecedented levels of global unity and innovation. The psychological warfare teams of the Galactic Confederation began to realize something terrifying. They weren't just failing to break humanity. They were teaching humanity an entirely new way of existing, and humanity was the most enthusiastic student the universe had ever seen. The research facility buried beneath the Atacama Desert was unlike any scientific installation in human history. It wasn't a single laboratory, but a living, breathing ecosystem of innovation that defied every conventional understanding of scientific research. Dr. Marcus Williams stood at the center of organized chaos. Around him, holographic interfaces shifted and merged, displaying computational models that would have driven most alien scientists to madness. Teams worked in configurations that made no sense to traditional scientific hierarchies. A quantum physicist discussing neural network design with a marine biologist, a materials engineer collaborating with a linguistic programmer. Innovation isn't linear, Williams often told his team. It's a complex, interconnected dance. The Alien Confederation believed they understood technological development. They had mapped technological progression for thousands of species across multiple galaxies. Their predictive models were mathematically precise, their technological roadmaps carefully controlled and anticipated. Humanity was about to shatter every single one of those models. The facility's primary project wasn't just a technological breakthrough. It was a complete reimagining of what technology could be. Adaptive AI systems that didn't just process information but evolved with each interaction. Quantum communication networks that could reshape themselves in microseconds. Biotechnological interfaces that blurred the line between organic and mechanical systems. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, leading the biotechnology division, was developing neural interfaces that made existing alien technologies look like primitive abacuses. Her team was creating communication systems that didn't just transmit information. They learned, adapted, and evolved with each transmission. We're not building technology, Rodriguez explained during a rare interview. We're creating living systems of information and interaction. The quantum computing team had developed computational models that could solve problems before they were fully articulated. Machine learning algorithms that didn't just predict outcomes, but created entirely new problem-solving paradigms. Where alien civilizations saw computation as a linear process, humans viewed it as a dynamic, creative ecosystem. Williams' primary project was particularly revolutionary, an adaptive AI system that could simultaneously exist in multiple computational states, breaking every known rule of quantum computing. It wasn't just a computer. It was a living, evolving intelligence that could reshape its own computational architecture in real time. The Alien Confederation's technology was precise, controlled, mathematically elegant. Humanity's technology was wild, unpredictable, terrifyingly creative. Each breakthrough came from an approach that defied conventional scientific methodology. Interdisciplinary teams that shouldn't logically work together. Research models that valued creativity over established protocols. A fundamental belief that every limitation was just an opportunity for transformation. The facility's communication network was a masterpiece of adaptive technology. Traditional communication relied on established transmission protocols. Humanity's system could reshape its entire communication architecture in milliseconds, creating transmission methods that were essentially untrackable and incomprehensible to existing alien technologies. Dr. Rodriguez's neural interface prototype could do something no alien technology had ever achieved. It didn't just transmit information. It created new forms of communication that evolved with each interaction. We're not just developing technology, she told her team. We're creating new forms of intelligence. The Alien Confederation's technological assessment teams began to realize something terrifying. Humanity wasn't just developing new technologies. They were rewriting the fundamental understanding of what technology could be. Where other species saw technology as a tool, humans saw it as a living, evolving ecosystem of possibility. Their computational models couldn't predict human technological development because humans didn't follow models. They created them. In the depths of the Atacama Research Facility, the future wasn't being predicted. It was being invented. One impossible breakthrough at a time. The first shots of the conflict weren't fired with weapons. They were launched through networks, economic channels, and adaptive communication systems that redefined the very concept of warfare. Commander Sarah Nakamura stood in the Global Strategic Coordination Center, a facility that looked more like a collaborative research hub than a traditional military command. Around her, teams from seemingly incompatible disciplines worked with a synchronicity that would have bewildered any alien military strategist. Economists sat beside quantum physicists. Cultural anthropologists collaborated with cybersecurity experts. Artificial intelligence specialists worked hand-in-hand with diplomatic analysts. This wasn't a military command. It was a living, breathing strategic ecosystem. The Alien Confederation had spent millennia perfecting military doctrine. Their warfare was a precise mathematical equation, computational models predicting conflict outcomes with surgical accuracy. Entire civilizations had been subdued through strategically applied force that left no room for unexpected variables. Humanity was about to become their most unexpected variable. The conflict began in the spaces between traditional warfare. Economic networks were the first battleground. Human teams developed adaptive economic algorithms that could predict and neutralize the Confederation's financial attack vectors faster than they could be implemented. Where other species would have defended their economic infrastructure, humans transformed it, creating distributed economic networks that were impossible to isolate or destroy. Nakamura's primary strategy wasn't about defeating the enemy. It was about fundamentally changing the nature of conflict itself. Cybersecurity teams developed communication systems that were living organisms. Neural-linked AI could predict communication attack patterns and reshape transmission networks in microseconds. Traditional military communication relied on established protocols. Humanity's communication infrastructure could literally change its own architecture faster than an enemy could analyze it. "We're not fighting a war," Nakamura explained to her team. "We're solving a complex, multi-dimensional problem." Military units were no longer rigid structures. They were adaptive teams that could reshape their entire operational methodology in real time. A Marine unit might include a quantum physicist, a cultural specialist, and an economic analyst. Traditional military doctrine saw specialization as strength. Humanity saw interconnectedness as true power. Alien military strategists watched in horror as human resistance defied every computational model. When the Confederation attacked economic networks, human teams didn't just defend. They transformed the entire economic landscape. When communication channels were targeted, humanity created entirely new communication paradigms. The conflict moved through multiple dimensions simultaneously. Psychological warfare met adaptive communication technologies. Economic attacks were neutralized by distributed problem-solving networks. Military engagements became complex, adaptive interactions that rewrote the fundamental understanding of conflict. Dr. Emily Rodriguez's adaptive neural interface technologies played a crucial role. Military units could share information, emotional states, and strategic insights in ways that transcended traditional communication. A soldier in one part of the world could instantaneously share tactical awareness with units across multiple theaters of conflict. Jake Thompson, coordinating strategic response from a secure communication hub, recognized the emerging pattern. This wasn't just resistance. This was a complete reimagining of how a species could respond to external threat. The Alien Confederation had perfected warfare as a controlled, predictable system. Humanity treated conflict like a complex, collaborative problem-solving exercise. Where other species would have broken, humans were becoming stronger. Strategic limitations became opportunities for innovation. Each attack vector was analyzed, understood, and transformed into a new method of resistance. Military units didn't just fight. They learned. They evolved. They transformed. The Confederation's military strategists began to realize something terrifying. They weren't just failing to defeat humanity. They were teaching humanity an entirely new way of existing. And humanity was the most enthusiastic student the universe had ever seen. The moment of true revelation came not with a thunderous battle or a spectacular display of technological might. It arrived quietly, in a series of incremental transformations that fundamentally rewrote the understanding of what a civilization could be. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood before the Galactic Confederation's Emergency Council, her presence a study in controlled intensity. Behind her, holographic displays showed not military conquests or technological achievements, but something far more profound, a comprehensive map of human potential. The alien delegates had expected a war report. Instead, they received a revelation. "You've been looking at us all wrong," Rodriguez began, her voice calm and precise. "Humanity isn't a species to be conquered or controlled. We're a systemic approach to possibility." The holographic displays began to unfold. Each projection revealed layers of human adaptation that defied every known model of civilizational development. Economic systems that could reshape themselves in real time. Communication networks that evolved like living organisms. Social structures that transformed limitations into opportunities with breathtaking speed. Where other civilizations saw rigid structures, humans saw flexible ecosystems of potential. The Confederation's leading analysts had spent decades studying humanity. They had compiled extensive psychological profiles, technological assessments, and cultural analyses. Hundreds of thousands of computational hours had been dedicated to understanding this seemingly insignificant species from a small blue planet. Every single one of those analyses was now revealed to be catastrophically inadequate. Humanity wasn't just resisting. They were rewriting the fundamental rules of how a civilization could exist. Dr. Rodriguez's presentation wasn't a defensive argument. It was a comprehensive demonstration of human potential. Each slide showed how human teams approached problems, not as isolated challenges to be solved, but as interconnected opportunities for transformation. A slide showing economic adaptation revealed how local communities had developed adaptive economic networks during the Confederation's sanctions. Another displayed how educational systems had transformed into distributed innovation centers. Military units were shown not as combat formations, but as collaborative problem-solving teams that could reshape their entire operational methodology in real time. "You thought isolation was a weapon," Rodriguez said, her voice carrying a hint of something between amusement and warning. "For us, it's just another problem to solve." The alien delegates began to understand the true nature of what they were facing. This wasn't just a species fighting for survival. This was a living, breathing system of collective intelligence that could transform any challenge into an opportunity for growth. Jake Thompson, watching from a secure communication hub, recognized the emerging pattern. Humanity's true strength wasn't in any single technological breakthrough or strategic achievement. It was in their fundamental approach to existence, a collaborative, adaptive, endlessly creative method of problem-solving that defied every conventional understanding. The holographic displays continued their relentless demonstration. Technological innovations that merged disciplines that shouldn't logically work together. Communication systems that could reshape themselves faster than they could be analyzed. Economic networks that distributed resources with a fluidity that made traditional economic models look like primitive accounting systems. Dr. Marcus Williams' adaptive AI technologies were shown not as computational tools, but as evolving intelligence ecosystems. Biotechnological interfaces developed by Dr. Rodriguez blurred the lines between organic and technological systems. Military strategies developed by Commander Sarah Nakamura transformed conflict into a complex, collaborative problem-solving exercise. The Confederation's leading strategists began to realize something profound. They weren't just facing a new species. They were witnessing the emergence of an entirely new approach to civilizational development. Humanity wasn't trying to conquer. They were trying to solve. Not just immediate challenges, but the fundamental problems of existence itself. The universe trembled not from fear, but from the recognition of something unprecedented. A species that didn't just adapt to challenges, but saw those challenges as opportunities for collective transformation. The revelation was complete. Humanity had arrived, and nothing would ever be the same again. The reconstruction of the Galactic Confederation wasn't a victory celebration. It was a comprehensive reimagining of interstellar cooperation. Jake Thompson stood at the center of the newly designed diplomatic chamber, its architecture a physical manifestation of the principles humanity was about to introduce. The space was no longer a hierarchical arrangement with powerful civilizations dominating central platforms. Instead, it was a circular, adaptive environment where communication could flow in any direction, where no single species occupied a position of inherent superiority. "We're not here to replace one system of control with another," Thompson announced to the assembled delegates. His words were simultaneously translated across hundreds of linguistic and cognitive spectrums. "We're here to create a framework of collective potential." The alien civilizations watched with a mixture of trepidation and reluctant fascination. Humanity had not just defeated the old system. They had demonstrated an entirely new approach to civilization itself. Dr. Elena Rodriguez introduced the first set of new governance protocols. They weren't traditional diplomatic agreements but adapted frameworks that could evolve with changing galactic conditions. Where previous confederations had created rigid legal structures, humans proposed living documents that could reshape themselves based on collective input and emerging challenges. The economic reconstruction was equally revolutionary. Instead of fixed resource allocation models, humanity proposed dynamic distribution systems that could adapt in real time. Smaller civilizations would no longer be trapped in economic dependency. Every species would have mechanisms for technological and economic growth that weren't controlled by more powerful entities. Commander Sarah Nakamura led the security restructuring. Military protocols were transformed from defensive structures into collaborative problem-solving networks. Conflict resolution became a multidisciplinary approach that integrated cultural understanding, economic analysis, and adaptive communication technologies. Dr. Marcus Williams unveiled communication technologies that would fundamentally change how civilizations could interact. Neural-linked communication interfaces that could bridge not just linguistic differences, but fundamental cognitive variations. Technologies that didn't just translate words, but could create shared understanding across radically different forms of intelligence. The alien delegates began to understand that this wasn't just a new political structure. This was a completely new way of conceptualizing civilization itself. Smaller species that had been marginalized for millennia found themselves with unprecedented opportunities. The adaptive governance frameworks created by human teams ensured that every civilization, regardless of its technological or economic status, could contribute to collective decision-making. Economic systems were redesigned to prioritize collective growth over individual accumulation. Resource distribution models became dynamic ecosystems that could reshape themselves to address emerging challenges. Technology transfer mechanisms were created to ensure that technological advancements could be shared more equitably. "We're not creating a perfect system," Thompson explained during a critical negotiation session. "We're creating a system that can continuously improve itself." The fundamental human innovation wasn't in any single technological or political breakthrough. It was in their approach to existence itself, a recognition that complex systems require continuous adaptation, that diversity is a source of strength, and that collective potential is far greater than individual achievement. Diplomatic communication was transformed from a series of calculated negotiations to a collaborative problem-solving exercise. Where previous confederations saw interactions as zero-sum games, humanity introduced frameworks of mutual growth and shared potential. The neural-linked communication technologies developed by Dr. Rodriguez allowed for unprecedented levels of mutual understanding. Civilizations could share not just information, but fundamental cognitive experiences. Empathy became a technological possibility, not just an abstract philosophical concept. As the new galactic frameworks were established, something unprecedented began to emerge. A genuine sense of collective potential that transcended individual species limitations. The universe watched as humanity did something truly remarkable. They weren't conquering. They weren't dominating. They were solving. Not just immediate challenges, but the fundamental problems of collective existence. The alien historian's final log entry captured the moment perfectly. Humanity arrived. Everything changed. And for the first time in galactic history, change became a collaborative opportunity rather than a threat. The trembling of the universe was not a sound of fear. It was the vibration of potential being unleashed.